koutou, ne bula, kia orana. I'm Whaea Bec, and if today is your first time joining me in our daily diary where we do some creative art projects, welcome. It's really nice to have you here. And if you've been doing, come to all the other lessons, I hope you've been really enjoying them and creating some really neat things for your time capsule. So just to recap about a little bit about what we've been doing, each day we have been exploring an idea about ko whānau, who am I? And we've been doing that through a variety of visual art activities. The first day we made a nameplate, the second day we made a personal logo, the third day we learnt about portraiture and made our own portrait, and then the fourth day we did a collage portrait just to try a portrait in a different way. So some of the keywords that we've been using over the last few days, I've got them here, are portrait, whakahua, shape, huahanga, and today our keywords are going to be hand, ringaringa, and foot or feet. Foot. Why? So today we're going to be documenting our hands and our feet and thinking about what materials you might need today. You can make some art, document your hands and feet using anything. Today I'm going to start with my pencil and my pad paper. So let's see what I've got in here today. So as I was preparing, I thought, right, I'm going to try and draw hands and feet, and that was really difficult. So when you start practicing doing some drawings of your hands and feet, don't worry if it doesn't look absolutely perfect. Mine certainly don't, and I do know that I'll need to go and keep practicing to get my feet and hands drawn better than they are here. But just to show you, for my foot drawing, I was looking at my son's foot while he was sitting on the couch last night watching TV, and I thought, gosh, that actually looks like a triangular shape. And a lot like when we did our portraits, how we broke it into basic shapes, you can do the same thing for your hands and feet today. So it looked a bit like a block triangular shape, and so I drew that in. And I wanted to make it look three-dimensional, so I angled out my lines and made it look box-like, like the foot is. And then I looked very carefully at the leg and the foot and the shapes of the heel and the toe, and drew that using my triangle block shape as a base for that subject matter that I was drawing. If the foot was angled at a different way, of course that initial shape will look different, and you can see my example here is a totally different shape. You can do the same thing with hands, and if I quickly draw my hand now, the first thing I would look at is what shapes do I see in my ringaringa, in my hand. My palm will probably be a circular shape, and my fingers look like a kind of sausage shape. So that's where I'd probably start, and I'll have a little go now. So my hand is kind of a square circular shape, and then I've got some sausage fingers up here. Actually, I might pay for me to break these down into smaller pieces for each segment of my finger. When I look at the next finger, it's slightly taller than the first finger, so I want to make sure that I draw that one a little bit taller. The next one's back to being shorter again, so my little sausage segments will be smaller, and then the same for the little finger. Then I've just got my thumb hanging out here on the end, so I'll probably start that about there and draw. It's got two segments on the thumb. Now once you have your basic shape of your hand, then you can really study your hand and start putting the outline shape not only looking about the positive space of your hand, your actual hand, but looking at the negative space, the space around your hand, and identifying those shapes. That will help you draw your hand as well. I'll just quickly get an outline around my ringa and my hand, because there's lots of other ways that we can explore our ranga and why in our hands and our feet that I want to show you today. So just using those shapes that we laid down, really closely looking at what's actually happening in the hand. You might want to put in some of the marks on your palm, and you can even extend your arm out like that. So that gives you, looks a little bit warped. I probably have to go back and do that again. It seems to be a little bit wider out that way. Maybe that's tucked in a little bit, doesn't go out that wide. So really, once you've got your basics, then you can start putting the accurate information in as you go. I'm still going to have to work. I think it's a little bit out of proportion, so I need to fix that up, make that a little bit less in there, rub out that, and I'll work away on that and improve that later. If you're sitting with someone on the couch watching this, and a good idea to think about what your hand is like and what their hand is like. You can measure your hand and see how big or how small, and notice what the differences are between your hands and their hands. Okay, so that's one way that we can study and document our hands. Moving on, I thought about my fingerprints, and so I've done, just ignore all this for now, I've done this really big drawing of my finger, blown it up into a larger scale, a bigger size, like I've been looking at it through a magnifying glass, and really explored my fingerprint. Because did you know that everyone has their own unique fingerprint? Sometimes I think twins can be quite close with the pattern on their fingerprints, but generally we have all got different ones. So I explored and I drew with thick and thin lines, really looking at the lines on my finger. And then I got to thinking, wouldn't it be cool if I could use my fingerprints as a stamp? So I drew around my hand, and I found some stamp pads that I had here at home. You could also use paint if you've got some paint, and inked it up and put my pinky and then my ring and my middle finger, my index finger and my thumb, and then labelled it. So that could be another activity if you are at primary school. You might quite like to do that. And then that got me to thinking, what could I create with my finger? So I did a little fingerprint whānau here in a bubble, and I've got myself and my son and my husband. Maybe I'll add my dog tomorrow. And then looking at some other characters. So that can be some things that you can do with your fingerprints. Handprints is another good way to explore your hand pattern. This one I made, I used paint for this one. And I painted my hand up. It was a very mucky operation. I made sure that I did it close by water so I could wash them straight away. And then I stamped them around in a circle. And as you can see from the picture, it actually created a beautiful looking pattern. And if I drew around that, I'm pretty sure I could transform my handprint into a flower and keep decorating that. So that might stir your creative brain into thinking, oh, how can I use my handprints as a pattern? Actually, I'll flip that over and use it for my next one. Thinking more about your feet and what you can do with your feet. You could draw around your foot, and you could decorate inside it. I have thought about the shape of a shoe and cut out a shoe footprint, kind of like a silhouette or maybe a mark that you could make. Who's noticed their feet when they've walked down the beach and they've created a print in the sand? Sort of similar to that. I drew one. I did mine on black paper. You might not have black paper. If you've got white paper, that's just as good, and if you want to colour it in black, you can also do that as well. And you could set them up around your house. You could trace your footprints. You could map out your trip to the fridge. You could create like a crime scene of where someone has been. Or you can lay them out again in a pattern. So I've just laid these out walking around in a circular pattern, and I think that could be a really good pattern to develop and explore. I could draw around those and add to my picture. So that's just another idea. I'll just put these out of the way so we can show you the next thing. Also, I asked my son if he would help me, and so he's prepared a drawing to show you today, and I'll just get that. So with this one, he traced around his hand, and I said to him, fill it full of any pattern or whatever you like to do, and so that's what he's come up with, and I think he's done an excellent job, so well done, son. Another thing about hands, there's an artist called Ronnie Van Hout, and he made a 5-metre tall hand, huge, that had a face in it called Quasi, and I think it's somewhere in Wellington. We'll have to check up on that. If you know about it, I'm sure you'll enjoy talking about that with your family. I think I've got one more to show you. Let's have a look. This one's quite fun. So with this one, it's quite a different perspective. So it's almost like if you were looking up and the floor or the ceiling was made of glass and someone was standing on top. That might be what you would see if they were bending over with their hands on the ground. So the way that you approach this one is drawing in your feet shape first, then your hand shapes, and then you add in your body. That was the easiest way to do it. So that could be another idea for exploring ringaringa and wai today. I hope some of these projects have given you an idea for something creative that you can do at home today. Remember that there's no wrong way to do it. Remember that if you're trying one of the higher level projects, that practice makes perfect, and encourage yourself each time you try something, because that's a great step towards learning and developing your creativity. So just a reminder on our keywords today. Let's take another look. We've got hand, ringaringa, and foot, wai. So if you're a primary school student, maybe you'd like to write those out, and older students, maybe just memorise them, particularly if there's a language there that you are not fluent with. I know I'm learning a lot of te reo and things as I go along. Okay, so if you've been making some art at home and trying out some of the things that we've been looking at, or maybe even exploring other ideas that you've thought about by what you've seen, I would love to see them. So if you would like to send them in, you can text a pic, I think, to 5811, and does it go that way? Okay, and then the web information, so sending an email to info@hltv.co.nz. There we go. I would love to see your work, and hopefully we can share some of it on the show in a virtual gallery. It would be amazing. So I hope to see you tomorrow, and until then, keep trying out those creative ideas. So mote, ka kite popo, kia manuia.